Dr. Robert Griffith, he's an MM, which means Member National 2016, is a retired diplomat of the American Board of Oral and Maxillofacial. How many of you are members of that? I had to ask him how to pronounce it. He served in the United States Army Reserve and was discharged the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and is a life member of the American Legion. Dr. Griffith has also been active in his community for decades, serving in multiple elected and appointed positions ranging from school board director to chairman of Montgomery County, PA Board of Health. Dr. Griffith is a member and longtime admirer of the Explorers Club and its principles. He applied for and was awarded the honor of carrying the Explorers Club flag in the summer of 2018 through Northern Southern Africa, Zululand, Swaziland, and participated in actual dehorning procedures and interviewed conservationists in the field. Reports of this expedition have been published in the critical aspects of the Explorers Journal and the Explorers Log in 2018. And without further ado, here is Dr.
Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight is broadly on the category of rhinoceros conservation, but then really focus on the aspect of dehorning and horn trimming is the aid in conservation, which we're hoping it can be. Now, there's been three critical time periods in modern times for white rhino history as we know it. And the reason we concentrate on white rhino is there's 5 species of rhinoceros, but white rhinoceros is the predominant one. If there's 28,000 rhinoceros in the entire world, white rhinoceros are about 20,000. And so that's why everybody concentrates more on the white rhinoceros. And it was back at the turn of the 20th century, right about 1900, it was discovered in Zululand that there might have only been about 24 white rhinoceros still left. White rhinoceros were pretty much hunted to extinction. And so they started a conservation effort and they brought white rhinoceros back. And then what happened is white rhinoceros started to expand beyond the borders. And by the time we got to the 1950s, it was the second crisis for white rhinoceros, because at this time there was a war on large mammals in Africa. They were looked on as a menace to the crops of the farmers, to livestock, and they were being killed indiscriminately. And this was the start of one of the great conservation movements in world history. This was the start of something called Operation Rhino, where an awful lot of information was attained. What they came up with a way to immobilize and to sedate large animals safely, to capture them and to relocate them to different parts of the world. And where I was telling Don before, they made a documentary about Operation Rhino, and this is where the movie Hatari came from. With John Wayne in 1962, he became a big focus, and to this day it's looked on as maybe the greatest conservation story in world history. And every white rhinoceros in the world can trace their genetic stock back to this small area in the 1950s in Zululand, when there were only about 200 of them left. Now, sadly, that conservation effort worked, and we're having our third crisis. And this is over the past 10 years, and this one is due to poaching. And there are several factors that go into it, but I'll explain one of them. One of the major ones was a law change that South Africa did in 2007, where it was a well-meaning law, but they made the domestic trade in rhino horn illegal to match the international ban. And while you would think that's good, I'll show you in my slides, it created a lot of problems because it was a sudden increase a decrease in the supply, which caused a major increase in price, which then pulled in all the poachers, and it started a cascading event. And that is still what we're trying to overcome. All the ranchers and the reserve managers have been scrambling ever since, just trying to keep rhino alive. And this is one of the small things that are being done, what I'm involved with, to try to keep them alive. And it's my son and myself as the expedition. Because it was hard to do the timing, they never want to tell people when they're doing dehornings, because it's telling the poachers when it's going to happen, and they'll be there to take us down. Rhinoceros poaching has exploded in South Africa due to the law in 2007. The ramifications on a simple law where they think it will do good, where they made the domestic trade illegal to match the existing international law. But as you can see, in 2007, there were 13 rhino poached entirely. And within several years, it went up to 1,000 killed in a year. Now that has to be in relation to this law. And with a total population of 20,000 worldwide, losing over 1,000 a year to poaching is just not compatible with rhino existence as we know it right now. And so both short and long-term approaches are needed to help with this situation. My expedition centers around a reserve. It's called Monkwe Wildlife Reserve in South Africa, and where I first visited with my entire family. And they had a horrible event where they lost 5 rhino to poaching in one evening, one morning. Once the word got out that rhino were there with horns, the poachers would come back. They're just absolute predators, ruthless predators. And once they did this, they went a step beyond, and it was so commendable. They decided to start a scientific project where not just dehorn their rhino, but they fought to get information and scientific information on everything, on how a dehorned rhino compares to a rhino with a horn, on so many different facets, everything about their life. Now the poaching deaths, as you can see, in 2007 is when this law came, and you can see what happened shortly after. Now while the number went down a little bit in 2018, it's not as simple as people say that, well, maybe it's turning a corner. Because the people I talk to in the field say, number one, all the soft pickings are gone. The low-hanging fruit has been taken. So the rhino that were sitting just carefully without being guarded, they've been poached. They've been killed. So that now the rhino are a little bit deeper into the reserves. And as they go deeper into the reserves, it gets really hard to find them. So it could be an outlier in 2018, or it could be going up, or it could not be accurate, but we're not taking that as a sign of success yet, that in 1 year it went down. But you can see the incredible exaggeration of numbers since the law in 2007. Now, what really drives the whole thing is that a very limited number of consumers believe that the horn has these misguided, it's a remedy for everything. Cancer, hangovers, an energy boost, whatever, but it drives the prices up. And in some areas of the Middle East, like Yemen, they use it for dagger handles, they use it for decorative use. But it is there is no use where it's ever been verified. There's no substantial claims to it. It's all myth, and there's nothing we can do about that right now. There's no scientific merit. The other thing with that is because of the economic growth of the areas I'm talking about, they actually have a little bit more money and they're moving into the middle class, and so they can afford something like this. And what several people in the Explorers Club have told me who travel over there, and they've asked very knowledgeable, very educated people, why do you still do this? And they've been told, because we can. They say, where was the world when we were having problems, when communism took over in the 1960s, and our books were burned and we were eating grass? Nobody was there for us now. Now it's a little bit of freedom. We can afford some things like this, and if we want to do this, we will do it. So it's very hard to get past some of the ingrained notions. In fact, it was just several months ago that China had made a ruling that doctors in the country could now prescribe rhino horn and tiger bone as medications in the hospital. And it met such an uproar worldwide that they had to take the ruling back. But it is still in the belief so much that there was a point that it might be prescribed in hospitals for patients. Now, because of these beliefs, rhino horn has become so valuable. The average white rhino front horn weighs about 9 pounds, about 4 kilograms. And the black market price has been estimated by everybody I talk to is about $60,000 per kilogram. So when you're talking with one rhinoceros, when they take off the horns, we're talking about $300,000 here. And what's even worse than that, there was a big bust in Hong Kong just in April. And at Hong Kong International Airport, they confiscated a package and said it was auto parts. And it was 80 kilograms of rhino horn. And Hong Kong valued that in their market, and Hong Kong should really know, because they're at the epicenter of this, they valued that at $16 million on the black market. Now that would come out to $200,000 per kilogram, which would possibly make the horns worth $500,000 or more. So this is a lot of money. We're not talking about some small area. This is bringing in the major criminals, terrorists, and there's a lot involved. This is not just a poor villager deciding to do it. Now also, the character and brutality of rhinoceros poaching is drastically changed since this rule change. They no longer try to keep their rhinoceros alive. What they do is they shoot it with a gun, no longer any tranquilizer. They bring it down rapidly. They use a chainsaw to sever its spinal cord so it can't thrash. They move in and take battle axes and chop off the front of its face while it's still alive and paralyzed, and then they leave it on the ground to get away quickly as the rhino just dies. It exsanguinates because of blood loss or the bullet. This is the common look of a rhinoceros now that's been poached. And you can see the devastating action on the bottom towards your left is a normal rhinoceros skull that died of natural causes, and on the bottom right you can see one that was poached. And that's the devastating action of an axe to take off the front of its face with the bone and soft tissue. Now, I'll use the term dehorning with horn trimming. Some people, when they hear the word dehorning, they get very upset about it because they think it's permanent. And taking off the horn is not permanent. And that's why a lot of people would like to use the word horn trimming. And the reserve I'm with has the scientific project, as I said, collecting all the data. We're using the field cameras. We study them in the field. It's long hours. It's very rewarding work. And so that's what a rhino looks like that's been dehorned. On the bottom right, and we all enjoyed seeing them just as much without the horn. There was no difference to us. Now, the main objective of my expedition was to become familiar with all facets of rhino dehorning, but from a perspective of hands-on work, not just hearing about it. We wanted to have our hands on them. And that encompasses working with a team that includes a veterinarian, a helicopter pilot, people that are really trained in the procedure, as well as volunteers and a reserve staff who have been a part of many of these. Now, a second objective was to keep current with people in the field with interviews, and that's why I traveled all through Southern Africa to talk to a lot of different people, get viewpoints, just to make sure that what I'm saying is the true thing. And we started at Monkway with interviews just to make sure we really know what we're doing in the field. And as I said, the paperwork alone for this is stressful. By putting the application into the South African government, which is so corrupt, what they do is they sell that information to the poachers, so the poachers don't have to work as hard. They know where rhino are with the horns, so they can attack the region possibly before we get there. And we start early in the morning with the vet giving us a briefing on what to expect. And we're joined by volunteers from a group called Mark of the Rhino. Great people, they bring all their personal weaponry, provide security for the days. We have to have government representatives there to watch everything. They weigh them, they measure them, they photograph the horns when they're taken off. Each horn has microchips placed into drill holes, and that's for identification, not for tracking. They take DNA samples. Now we start the day with the helicopter. It has the pilot, the operations manager, that's Lynn for rhino identification, and the vet for darting. Lynn picks out the rhino that we're gonna dart at that moment. The helicopter pilot herds it to an accessible location, because obviously you don't want to sedate an animal that can go into a body of water, into the deep brush. And and he's remarkable. It's amazing from a helicopter using a rifle how every time he seems to hit it in the hindquarters in the one quadrant it needs for sedation. They're just terrific shots at this. And they do it through even that is dangerous. This reserve 18 months ago, while they were trying to dart the rhino, the man darting it fell out of the open seat and he perished trying to do that. So this part is also dangerous. Now once he does it, everybody gets out. And this is just to show the immense size. With the operation manager, she goes up, try to calm it as it's sedated. Good luck. After darting now, there's about 7 to 10 minutes to effect. And the dart itself is very brightly marked, and everybody is warned not to touch it, not to pick it up, as it's extremely powerful anesthetic, and it could be quickly fatal to humans. And the medication is so strong, it's 1,000 to 3,000 times the power of morphine. We would give a rhinoceros, and it's great because it has great speed of effect, but equally important is the speed that we can reverse it. But we would give a rhinoceros 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams. 30 milligrams, micrograms, would kill half the people in this room. And the rhinoceros gets 2,000 to 4,000. Extremely powerful. Now this is the kind of drug where if you hear about fentanyl, where they say even if you touch it and it gets into your skin or you touch your eye, fentanyl is not that powerful. I work with fentanyl every day in my office. Fentanyl is 100 times as strong as morphine. This is 1,000 times. This is instant, you'll have respiratory collapse and just perish. Now after successful work by the helicopter team, the ground crew, which we were a part of, you're in the back of the vehicle, bouncing along, listening by radio contact, just following the rhino as he's starting to slow down. We move in, we put cotton wool in their ears to reduce the auditory input. The same with the eyes. When they're anesthetized, they can't blink. So we cover the eyes to reduce stress. Eye drops are placed in because they can't blink. We start an IV in the ear. Twitching of the rhino's legs are normal under anesthesia, and it's a good sign. You like to see movement. That's myself moving into one of the rhinos, and the breathing has to be continuously monitored. And it's just and I've done thousands of anesthesias in my office. And this is an easy anesthesia. You don't have to worry as the rhino breathing. You cup their nostril, and it is a deep, hard, long breath. You notice it. You hear it maybe from 10, 20 yards away. And we watch closely. It's just like anybody else under anesthesia. 6 to 10 breaths a minute are normal. If the breaths go too low, you might have to reverse them. If they go too high, they're too light, and they might buck up us and hurt us. So it's watched carefully. And that's the vet right there leaning over, just asking me what it's like. Is it safe to work on the rhino? And then we move in. The flatbed trucks have generators, and we use power saws, and they get right in. Both horns are carefully removed. Now the key thing is, the horns are carefully removed above the growth plate. The horn itself is just made of long fibers of keratin. It's the same as your fingernails. It's the same as your hair. There is no difference. It's keratin, and there's no magic to it. And if you remove the horn above the growth plate, a lot of times, this vet is very experienced. Some of the others put a white line right around it. But if you remove it above the growth plate, it grows back. It grows back about 1 kilogram a year, maybe 2 inches a year. If we didn't remove it again, by about 3 years later, it's grown back, and it's a nice sized horn. But the whole thing about it is, it grows back. There's nothing that's non-retrievable here. And that's such an important fact, because I've been attacked so many times by doing this, where I have people that tell me, I hope you have all of your teeth taken out. I hope people do this to you like you do to the animals, but they don't understand. It's a reversible fact, and we're only doing it to save their life. If the rhino does not have $300,000 to $500,000 of horn on him, the poachers generally will not go after him and kill him. You know, it's just common economics. I think we can all agree with that. While they're down, we give them multivitamins, do other tests on them, give them an anti-inflammatory, just to help with the bumps and bruises of all this going on. They take off the front horn first, then they turn their attention to the smaller second horn, always monitoring the respiration. Once the horns are removed, they're placed into government bags, and all the things I told you that are done to it are done. Because that horn right there, it's hard to believe, but right there, that's probably about $200,000 on the black market. As I said, noteworthy, there's no bleeding from the horn stump, no change with the breathing or physical reaction at all when it's being removed. And after we finish all the work, the rhino's breathing is monitored, so the reversal agent is given. And it's amazing having a patient like that. I can't tell you, just when I see that, I get so happy just seeing it. Just having your hands on a patient that's 5,000 pounds, and they're just so calm, and they're just sitting there, and you're feeling the respirations. It is just fascinating. And there's our flag, the Explorers Club flag on it. Here my son was filming, he did a lot of the filmography for this, and he was filming, and the one rhino decided to turn on their side during a sedation. So they had to get about 15 guys to try to push it up, and it was good luck. I mean, he was looking at me, and I'm trying to push it. It's like just trying to go against this building over here and just try to push the wall. It just doesn't work. The mass is incredible. But sooner or later, they bent the legs and they got it up, because they'd rather have it up on its stomach. It's more natural to do the dehorning. But sometimes when it goes down, there's nothing you can do on its side. You have to do it there. And they do not move. That's the other key. People think this is different. There's no anesthesia with that. You would not be able to do that to any creature, man or beast, if that was painful. Once it's done, the reversal is given. And once you give the reversal, you don't have to tell everybody twice to get out of the way and get up into the truck. 2 to 3 minutes to work. The rhino gets up, he wobbles around for a few seconds, and within a minute or two, he just walks away and starts eating grass, starts grazing. No problems at all. This is the rhino we're doing. There he is. This is after 3 minutes. Just walking on the road, just walking away. And you always wonder, will they have a 30-inch, 35-inch horn, what it must feel like when they wake up and all of a sudden that's not there. Nobody will ever know. You know, we as humans don't know what it's like, but it certainly doesn't seem to bother them. Very few people are getting paid here. Everybody is volunteers taking off time, and it's amazing how everybody working together can do a good deed. And then after this, I went to KwaZulu-Natal, Swaziland, just to keep current with everybody in the field. And as I said, one of the most common things I've heard about is how everybody in Africa is very upset with mainly people in the United States that have never been to Africa, have never seen a rhino, have never helped in the cause, but telling them exactly what to do, what they can do, what they can't do. When I was researching this, I looked at a couple books, and one book was a well-talked about book on rhino, and as I looked into it, I looked at the cover, and the author said, I've written this book, but I've never been to Africa or seen a rhino except in a zoo. And this drives them crazy. They don't understand how people that don't walk in their shoes can tell them what to do constantly. And that's why they were so happy with us being over there. And I told them the Explorers Club was interested, and they gave us incredible access because of the Explorers Club and because we were interested in trying to help them. The only thing we can do to try and help this is the well-funded and well-trained anti-poaching units. And these fellas guard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's amazing the work they have to do, and it's an extremely dangerous job because some countries, if they catch a poacher in South Africa, frequently these fellows are put in jail for kidnapping. And the poacher is set free because they buy off the government. And it's very dangerous work, these anti-poaching fellows, and I really respect them. We can do an increase in arrest and conviction of all involved in poaching activities. Once again, difficult because of the corruption involved and the money involved. Education and awareness training, and it's a lot of things, just like in the United States, where you can go to a great school, in a suburban school where it's well funded, and teach the kids about drug use, and they're not that involved in it. You have to go to the area where the drug use is important. And the same thing here. We have to get to the areas where rhino horn and other animal parts are abused. We have to get there and really teach them. It's not the overall effect. Use of rhino horn is not really a problem in the United States, not in South America, not in Europe, not in Australia. It's several isolated spots, and those are the areas that we have to reach. And the dehorning, it's not a panacea. It doesn't cure everything, but what it does do is help. Everywhere I went, they said it's a key to help, to contribute trying to save the rhino. One of the downsides is it's also the reverse of the good side. The horn does grow back. Now, because it grows back, we have to keep on doing it. So you have to do it maybe every 18 months, every 2 years for each rhino, and that's a lot of money. And money has to continually be found, or volunteers to contribute to this. And every now and then, the poachers, when they track and they find a dehorned rhino, they'll still kill it, just out of spite. They do it out of pure meanness, and they'll also do it because killing a rhino makes the poachers' stockpiles more valuable. The poachers would like to see the rhino go extinct, because then the rhino horn that they have would increase in value incredibly. Because the poachers are not looking for this level of criminal activity. They're not looking for 1 year in advance, 2 years in advance. They know there's somebody looking over their shoulder that's just as dangerous as them. They're looking for the next month, for the next 2 months. They don't really have long-range planning in their career. That's what I'm saying, is we applaud the fact that the horn grows. It's also one of the complicating issues that I recognize with this. But the consensus opinion is that dehorning is helping, and those in the field will just try any maneuver to thwart the poachers until the tide turns. All we're trying to do is keep them alive to somehow this changes and we can get on top of the schedule. That's all it is. And my conclusion and summary is we need to make the risk greater than the gain for any criminal involved with or contemplating poaching. History always shows us that any criminal activity is never eradicated. Criminals just move on to an easier and more profitable target. And we can hope that arrest and conviction will make this work of poaching more difficult for them, more dangerous, as well as the well-trained and motivated APUs, anti-poaching units. And then through education, we'll reach the next generation of potential consumers of animal parts in their formative years and maybe get our point across. And basically, we need to keep the rhino, elephants, every other animal that's threatened alive with a healthy breeding population until the current generation of misusers and abusers realize the error of their ways. And that's it.